Yeah.
And then he would
Jeff and I are going to work on your grades from 3 o'clock. So we're really looking forward to it. We're really looking forward to it. I'm just some general feedback. We are absolutely bowled over by what you've all done, all the formats. Those of you who made films, we are universally impressed at your filmmaking ability. Those of you who did mood boards and variations on the theme of mood boards, absolutely stunning. We worry all the time, you see. We worry all the time about whether or not the thing can get done, or whether you. But actually, the fact is, you just work till last minute. And what you do is you don't bother coming to the lectures, but you download the lecture notes. That seems to be also the case. You interpret them as best you can, because actually you just don't want us warbling on. Me particularly, and you just get on with it, don't you? Right? I think that's about it. And you don't want to come on a school trip. School trip felt like a school trip, didn't it? You don't want to come on a script. You see, I'm under stress. A trip to a museum. So the learning I have from that is that next year we're going to make it compulsory. That coach is going to be full. Because of course you know, and you always say to me, is there a grade for that? You get marked for that. If you don't get marked for it, well, I'm not going to do it. So there's going to be a mark for it. So thank you very much for that. I learned an awful lot from that. So I'm going to change the syllabus for next week. But yeah, I don't know what Graham and I are going to do. Graham, I'm getting all wrong today, aren't I? Right. What Jeff and I are going to do today, but we had to process quite a lot of information last week. It was a bit of a heavy day for us. But yeah, we've got them all locked on computers, and the big mood boards that we have are all securely locked up and ready for external examiners. We will decide what to do, and we'll get the grades back to you as soon as possible. Whether we'll get it finished today, I don't know. It's a lot to go through. But yeah, you can see I'm just so pleased with what we've all done. And I hope that you're not really disappointed with what Jeff and I about. So we're halfway through. Now the learning is, I'm not going to give you any more lectures. But what we're going to do is going to offer you some films. So those of you who are interested, those of you who want to explore the ideas further, if you can be asked, or if you've got the time, if you think there's something you might get from it, then I've got some equally challenging films that I want to show you in these sessions, and there will be scope in the 3 till 6 o'clock slots to talk about them and or to pursue your ideas in terms of this 1,000-word assignment that is still to do. Okay? So it's going to be completely up to you. I am now reassured that you will all submit something sort of on time, to budget, to length, for your individual assignment, which is more traditional piece of work. And what is it? Anybody started? There isn't a lot of information, is there? There isn't a lot of but there never is a lot of information, is there? You see, it's kind of more traditional, but not really. Not really. You see how much it's up to you? Shall we read out what it says? What does it say? It says, all my sheets here, individual assignment. In fact, have I managed it in one sentence? I did. Parentheses are there, commas, one sentence. See, these are the best kind of assignments, aren't they? One sentence assignments. Well, they're the best for us because it gives you the scope and it gives us the opportunity to say, that's an interesting way of interpreting that sentence. Yeah? But there are some clues in the way in which it's worded, so these are the things to actually follow, yeah? So it says up to 1,000 word report. There's an article missing there. I'm kicking myself there. I'm telling you all about getting your words right. But up to a 1,000 word report, okay? So, right, word counts. You've all been subject to word counts, haven't you? Now the great thing about the artifact you've done is there isn't actually largely a word count there. But here it has to be 1,000 words plus or minus 10%. Okay, that's what you're actually aiming for. If you want to say more, or you've got something more you want to say, then use your creative bit of yourselves again and make a diagram, make a graphic, make something that doesn't add to your word count. Stick it in as a picture if you think that that is utilisable, if that's good for what you're actually trying to do. That's one way of getting around the word count. And one thing I say about tables, you can use tables, but don't stick in a table a pile of prose sentences. Tables are not for sentences, tables are for points. Don't do that. It's not a way around it. Do you think 1,000 words is quite a lot for what we've got to do? No? Okay, that's good. I'm pleased to hear that. So, up to 1,000 word report that considers the policy implications. Policy. So we're actually trying to think in business terms here. Policy implications for managers, firms, and potentially governments seeking to bring design to the forefront of product development, innovation, strategy, and diffusion. Now, some of those things probably don't mean a lot to you, do they? So, diffusion. Jeff should have gone through a little bit of diffusion with you. Does that make sense? We know what diffusion is? What do you think diffusion is? Anybody? When something diffuses. When it comes together. It might be, it might not be. You're right.
When it comes together, it forms a new.
Oh, right, okay. Right, no.
Is it the opposite?
It's sort of the opposite, isn't it? We're not talking about the artifact. It's like a bad smell, all right? It's like a bad smell that you kind of, somebody carrying a bad smell. I had a shower this morning to make sure I didn't, but had I been carrying a bad smell, it would by now, despite the windows being open, have diffused around the room. There's a mechanism by which products diffuse. And those mechanisms are what? Jeff will have shown you a little graph which talks about the life cycle of a product, yeah? So they start by, nobody knows about it. Nobody knows about it. Firms have mechanisms for doing that, getting the word around that the product is out. It might be traditional advertising, and probably social media, but the best diffusion mechanism is what? Word of mouth. That's it. That's it. Alright? So that's diffusion. Products don't diffuse. We don't go past the early adopters, yeah? Concept of early adopters. You're all early adopters. I can see it. I can see it in your artifacts. You're all early adopters of technology. You then talk to others. It diffuses until, in my case, never actually happened, but until your dad, or your granddad actually, until granddad does it, then you know it's actually really been a success. So that's diffusion. That's the concept of diffusion. Innovation. We've talked endlessly about innovation. So your artifacts are packed full of innovation and innovation concepts. So I'm pretty confident we're okay with that. What about strategy? What do we know about strategy? What is strategy? Does anybody have a personal strategy? What would that be? What are you doing here? What's the objective of being here? You've all come here today. What's the object? To succeed. That's quite high. That's quite a high level. That's quite a high level objective. Yeah, that's good. I'm pleased to hear that. That's what you're doing. You want to succeed. So the strategy is what? So to succeed is what you're trying to do. That's your objective. So what is this, how does strategy relate to an objective?
It's a plan to do.
Sorry?
It's a plan.
It's a plan. It's a plan. It might sort of plan, yeah. Strategy and plan, they, especially the way we're thinking, being creative about things. Strategies and plans, you've got to be careful with that. But yeah, a means to achieve your objective, which is to succeed. And you have all concluded today that being here to listen to me warble on for the last time is a good strategy. Yeah? So firms do that all the time. They have strategies. They set themselves objectives not unrelated to succeeding, although they've got some metrics to know what succeeding actually is. There's expectations of stakeholders, who might be shareholders, who might be employees or whatever. And firms have strategies to fulfill those, and it might be in the form of a plan, it might be pretty haphazard. If you're an entrepreneur, which I can see a lot of you, potentially might be, if you're an entrepreneur, it's not really a plan because you have absolutely no idea. That's one of the great things, isn't it? Being an entrepreneur, it's just a roller coaster ride. You're not quite sure where it's going. You just have to respond to things actually as they actually happen. If you're a large multinational firm, you actually need to be a little bit more ordered about it. You've got resources, you've got key stakeholders, and there's a lot more management involved in it. But if you're just an entrepreneur and the buck stops completely with you, then you're completely in charge of the strategy. But from one day to the next, it might be different. It might change. You might go this way, you might be going that way. It's very difficult to do that. Success, to succeed, but what is that? Do you know what that is? What's your definition of success? You don't have to answer it. For you, what is success?
So achieve what I set out to do.
Nicely circular, that. It says everything without saying anything, doesn't it? Yeah? Fantastic little turn of phrase, I like that.
To finish university.
Oh, right, okay, right. We get a little bit further. Finish it, well, that's an easy one. Time will do that for you, yeah? You don't need to think you've got to work a bit harder. But you might set yourself, most of you set yourself a division, don't you, in terms of what degree it is you think you should get. First, I2, second, 2-2, third, not third. Oh, nobody here wants a third, is there? Yeah? Really? Hope not. Some of you do. Some of not you, but I have seen it. The thing about business studies students, isn't it? You kind of work. You can't aim for it. You can. Some people do. They do, honest. They do. I sit there and I look at them and I absolutely just utterly despair. What? You can tell I'm not interested in that for you, can't you? Yeah? Really not. That's not what we want. That's why I'm stood here, trying to explain what this one sentence means. Yeah? Because I want you to be able to interpret it and to deliver something that meets the requirement, but also is quite creative. Okay? So, policies. What are policies?
So rules and regulations.
Some rules and regulations. We make policy in order to deliver the strategy, yeah. They're big indicators, aren't they, right? And that's quite important because what we're trying to do here in this assignment is to think design, right? The challenge is, how do you embed design in firms in order to achieve, through product development, innovation, diffusion, and strategy. And okay, you can focus on on one or two of those to the exclusion of others, or you can have a go at all four of them. You could do a comparative table, see how design links with strategy, how it links with innovation, how it impacts on diffusion. You might think that that doesn't work for you, that's also okay. But at least two of them, I would say, we need to think about. It's always good to have something that's kind of comparative, something to work on, yeah? Something that we can say, oh well, the impact is different on innovation vis-a-vis strategy, or different on innovation vis-a-vis, it has an impact on the diffusion.
What sort of company was it you that sort of
Right, okay. You can have a real company. That's a good question. You can have a real company that you're aware of. And some of you pick real companies for your presentations and pick them apart. So it's kind of good to use what you've already done to some extent. Or you can make one up. You can have an imaginary friend firm that just kind of neatly fits your framework. Some firms are design-led. This is key, right? Some firms are design-led. So Apple is design-led, isn't it? That's one thing. That's the one thing we're sure about, isn't it? I'm not asking you to do Apple, please. Please don't do it. No more Apple. If you must, okay? If you must. But as an example, that's the unique selling point, right? The governance inside is not anything. It's all about the design, not just the design of the case. We've seen Jonathan Ives designing the case, and actually designing it so well that the bits that they cut out when they're actually making the case are reusable in other bits of the machine. So it's design in terms of the way it looks, but design in the way in which it's actually made. It's efficient. Nothing is wasted. Yeah. But also the design in combining the various components. There's also a design in the process by which the product is made. It's made, lots of Apple products are made in China. The design is done in Silicon Valley. So there's a process there that's also designed. These are all policy options. So don't just think about the product. Think about how the product is made, delivered, and then how it diffuses, yeah? So we're looking at as broad as we can. Now, again, you might need to focus on something, but it's quite useful to point us to the fact that you are aware of the complexity of the process, of the concept of design. It's not just about the product. There's lots of other design elements that all fit together. Now, one of the core themes of this module has been this concept of design thinking, where we can all be designers. The more we think like designers, so goes the theory, goes the thinking, the more we think about as designers, the better we are going to be at meeting those objectives that we set for ourselves. Actually, it's good to think like designers. If I could get the dean of this business school to think like a designer, well, think. He's an accountant. Thinks like an accountant. Right? There are limitations there. So there's this thought in design thinking. And design is thought to be the next competitive advantage, okay? There's a thought that if design is the next competitive advantage, we all need to have that facility to think like a designer. Which is what? What is it to think like a designer? What did you do when you were thinking about your artifact? You didn't think like accountants, did you? I could see it. It's laid bare to us. We've got these artifacts. They are design artifacts largely. So how were you thinking? What were you thinking? Was it the way that you were thinking that actually brought about the artifact to the quality, to the ability to actually succeed, to deliver on time, to get everybody to do something? Did you think that design? How did your groups break up? Was there anybody who didn't think designerly? Good job, that rhetorical question. So, let's have a look. One sentence. Up to 1,000 word report that considers the policy implications for managers, firms, potentially governments. Governments. Why might governments be important? Why did I put government? But it's in brackets.
Is that kind of linked to rules and regulation?
Well, it may well be rules and regs. That's a good point. That isn't what I was thinking, but that would do. Yeah. That would do. Anything else? Governments. What do governments do? Rules and regulations. We can split that apart. What do governments do? What else do governments do?
Agree?
In
Agree.
approve. Approve.
I don't know.
Yeah, they approve. Good word. They do approve. They approve all sorts of things. Yeah. What do governments approve? Standards. What do governments do? They do in kind of products and services. They do standards, don't they? They set standards. They write specifications for what things need to do. The rules and regulations are there. Governments say, what is a company? They spell out what is a company. You can't be a company without government approval. Yeah. So governments are key actors here. I'm not asking you to focus on that, but I'm asking you to think globally. If you're selling something internationally, the motor industry is a good example of this. Some of you did the motor industry. If you think about the motor industry, standards are different in different countries. Think about emission standards in different countries. That's a real challenge. That's a real design innovation challenge. What do you do? What's the motor industry do? How does the motor industry solve that dilemma? Any thoughts? You see, what you can't do, I would have thought, what you can't do is designed to the least stringent standard, can you? Otherwise you have the smog that you have in Beijing. And a lot of Western countries have been through that. So actually the emission standards are already quite high in the West relative to emerging markets. It will catch up very, very quickly. Right? So you're not going to design to that standard, are you? But you wouldn't be able to sell the cars anyway in lucrative markets in the West. But do you design to the highest standard? And then sell the high standard vehicles in the emerging markets? Is that a solution? So what do you do? There's a dilemma, there's a business dilemma for you. And for global companies, for companies that are in global markets, those are the kind of questions that they're faced with all the time. So if you're in the motor industry, that's something you need to think about. for other governments. Education. That's a key one. What is it? Are there policy implications in terms of education to think design-like, to think design? We've come on this module to think design. But most of your peers across the road in engineering, basket case. There's no design there. There's no creativity there. Pushing a bit. Some of the colleagues from across the road were here, they'd be kind of assaulting me at this point. But you know, you can generalise a little bit. They're governed, they're ruled by engineering principles, which are generally mathematical principles. They're generally problem solving. They're kind of Herbert Simon kind of approach to design, which only gets you so far.
What's that got to do with the government?
Well, the government sets standards for education. The argument for the design thinkers is that actually children in schools need to be taught how to, or need to be freed up to think in design terms rather than as engineers. But as we know, the curriculum is very much towards STEM subjects, science and technology, economics and mathematics, engineering, yeah? So that's a policy, there's a battle going on all the time. Do firms want engineers, mathematicians, or do they want people who are creative, who can think, who can critique, who can challenge, who can problem solve, multi-skilled? Most of the firms I've worked with, been engineering firms particularly, have relied on their engineers to do the problem solving and to do the design. The argument here has always been that actually you need design up front. When you start a project, when you start designing something, or making something, a new product, well, you need the designers right at the start. You need Jonathan Ives with his bit of cardboard. At the start. That's where you start. You don't start 2/3 of the way down when you think, what kind of a box are we going to put it in? Because that's not what design is about, according to the kind of design thinking people. So there are challenges there, and for governments and standards, what kind of education system is fit for purpose for 21st century design thinking? If indeed you believe that it is a design century, you might think it's not, which is also okay. There's a lot in this one sentence, and it's there for you to explore the concept. The key thing is design and implication. With some actors, managers, maybe governments, firms, you could put employees in there. That's also okay. Now, where do you start? What are we expecting? What we don't want is a freehand story. It's got to be grounded in something, right? Now you already made a good start with your presentations, your artifacts, yeah? You picked up some of the key concepts inside the theory through the lecture notes and like. You did really well, right? You were selective, used them quite interesting ways. That was fine. So you've got to build on that. Now we ask you to embed those concepts in your artifact. This time we want them out. Yeah? We want to test again whether or not you can understand them and you can use them. And they're in the lecture notes and they're in the reading list. And there are some clues. We want you to make some reference to some of the reading, yeah? So we want you to do some citations. You can find your own sources, or you can use what is a fairly extensive list that we put together for you. The journal papers, you can just download from a computer, from your laptop, yeah? You log in, go through the electronic library, the hyperlink should take you through. Now, see the first three here, key reading. My name's on there. I'd love you to read them. A lot of my life went into writing these papers, yeah? And a lot of the concepts that we're asking you to kind of think about are actually in these papers. And look at this. This one's a bit of a gift. This one's a bit of a gift. Look at this. Policies for design and policies for innovation. Couldn't be easier, could it? Contrasting perspectives and remaining challenges. Now, it's the biggest clue I could give you. Maybe a place to start. And it's one click away from a fantastic evening. Yeah? Download it, get your dinner. I know what I do, get my dinner, right? And I put it, I've got a book stand, yeah, put it on the book stand, right, munch away, think, wow, it's great, it's actually great. I do this with my own papers. I go back to them every now and again, I think, you did that, that was fantastic, you did really well. Right. These are peer-reviewed papers, right, and this module is kind of designed around these three papers. This is what we're thinking. All those concepts are explored. Now they're going to be explored at a level which you don't need to. We're not asking you to, but to understand fully. There's quite a bit. Mike Hobday is a traditional economist. Yeah? There's a lot of economic speak. So you'll see some references to Joseph Schumpeter, right? He's a Schumpeterian economist. Do I need you to know what that is? Well, if you do know what if it does sort of hit you as to what that is, then that's great. But it says something about him. But the point about these papers is he's the economist, right? Anne Boddington is an architect. And I am just me. Actually, I'm a political scientist, so the government bit here comes from me. The rest is what we've put together there. And it's based on our understanding of the field of design and innovation, because what we've been trying to do with these papers is to set an agenda. And it's packed full also of citations and references, which would be another interesting evening for you. I can see you have lots of, well, maybe not. Objectified movie, we started with that. Now some of you took copious notes on that. There is a copy of it in the library. You could go and have a look at it. Again, that's not a bad source. Lots of the concepts are actually hidden in that film. Now again, this one here, this DTI report from Bruce Tether. Yeah. Now Bruce Tether is innovation scholar working out of Manchester University. Right? He wrote it for the Department for Trade and Industry. It's packed full of policy. Packed full. You at least get some sort of idea, and it's easy to read. You get some sort of idea about what the policy implications are for generating a design-led economy, which is really what the question is there. Yeah. And then we've got this kind of more, a bit drier kind of stuff with Hatchell and Weil, CK design theory. Now, your lecture notes are packed full of that as well. There's some papers as well. Now, these are quite difficult, it is true. These are quite difficult, but there's a very simple story. No matter how difficult they make it, right, there's a very simple story in these papers. Concepts and knowledge. That's all this is about, right? All I want is for you to pick up the idea that there's a relationship between a concept and a body of knowledge that enables you to realize the concept. A concept is not real, it's a construct. You make a concept real, according to them, by this interaction between two domains, a knowledge domain and a concept domain. And the innovation comes out of working these hard, different iterations over and over again, but knowing when to stop. There is a process involved. There are some examples of things, artifacts, that have been designed and tested using this kind of theory. Now, there's some in the book, but also in the papers that are also on this reading list. Again, have a go. That's all we're asking you to do. You can also have a look at what other people say about products and how they came about and how they developed and the implications there. There's not so many copies of this around, but you're creative enough to find sources. You're creative enough to think any product around. I wonder, who did the Coke? Who did the Coke bottle? Does anybody did the Coke bottle yet? Yeah. You thought about that. History of the Coke bottle. You started somewhere. You worked through it, didn't you? Right? You were clear right the way through what the concept was. And the longevity of that concept was still, the bottle is still, when was it? 1890s? 1890s. The Coke bottle. I'm not saying this is a good mark, but what I am saying is it was there was a nice little consistency through there, yeah? Which was the bottle. And there's a whole story around, there's a whole design, innovation, business, diffusion kind of story around that bottle. Yeah? It's iconic. It has, this is my other thing that this is where Jeff and I are different, right? Jeff couldn't give us stuff about what something feels like, you know? He has no emotion, you might have noticed this, mightn't you? Right? He's emotionless, isn't he? Right? He's got no, I'm doing him a disservice, love him to bits, right? But when I talk about the meaning of something, right? Man back, yeah? Yeah? When I talk about the meaning of something, he just goes, huh? But you know what? He's not without that emotion, right? Things do mean something to him. They're just different. Because he's North American. Culturally, it'll say to me something like, can't do those grades tonight. Oh, you've got something better to do, have you? He loves, don't tell him I told you this, right? He loves ice hockey. Right? Ice hockey. Can't help himself. Right? Everything stops for ice hockey, right? If he's bleary-eyed in the morning, it's because he's been watching ice hockey in the Canadian League in the middle of the night. It's not the middle of the night in Canada, but you know what I mean. Yeah? It means something to us. Lots and lots of things mean things to us, right? But for me, design has a kind of meaning. I have an emotional relationship with things, textual relationship with things. Jeff's much more on the innovation, economic side. So we're a good team, largely for this module, and deliberately so. But if we get some meaning into that, and the theories around meaning. So these people are all, look, Philip Starr, we've seen enough of Philip Starr, haven't we? He's full of meaning, isn't he? He's an enfant terrible. Everything has to mean something. He makes things that he knows aren't actually going to work, but it doesn't matter because they do mean something. There is this interface between art and artifact and industrial product. Kettles that don't work, they're not in use, are they? He doesn't care. The kettle that was in the subversive design exhibition. Did anybody get to that? Somebody did. So I spoke to one of your peers who went. I said, you saw it.
Yeah, I can't remember.
You can't remember that. You can't actually remember. So that's all right. You went to the exhibition. Right? Did you pay?
Oh, no, yeah,
You did. You paid to get in.
yeah. It was only like £3.
It was only like £3.
Yeah.
The student I was talking to, I said, did you pay? So because I had to pay for the nose to get into it, you know. He said, I said, did you pay? He said, did you have to? I like that. I like that so. I found, did I have to pay? Didn't notice. Didn't realise. Just walked in. Walked in. Nobody. Brilliant. This is not an endorsement of not paying. But I thought, great. I wish I'd thought about that. I mean, it's quite right. I could have just walked in. There was. It's not like being in London where you go, where there's, there's a whole pile of people, checking your tickets or whatever. In Brighton, it's just like, well, yeah, there is a. In fact, you don't even know where you have to pay in Brighton. Like, where's the kiosk? Just walk in, and there's some guy sat there just making sure you don't, deface the artifact. Never ask you for your ticket. That means something to me. That's great. I like that. I like that a lot. Unfortunately, I had to pay to go to the design museum, but maybe next year, maybe that's going to be part of the maybe that's part of the exercise. How many of us can get in free and then write about it? Philip Stark. So Philip Stark's at this kind of emotional kind of don't believe everything he says. I mean, he's also an astute businessman. All of this stuff that he does about the emotion is all a bit of a marketing. It's all about the diffusion. It's all about getting the products out there at high margins. These products are high value products. Actually, they're no different from a Tefal. In fact, they are different from a Tefal kettle because the Tefal kettle works. But there are people who want Philip Stark products in their house, in their houses. There's something emotional. That kettle, do you remember the kettle? Do you remember the Alessi kettle with the bird on it? Honestly, if you go searching, you'll find countless people arguing that actually is meaningful. And they make stories around the meaning of it. In the morning, that little bird that sings, it's not a bird. It's not a bird. It doesn't sing, but we've kind of wrapped this kind of narrative around it. Clever designers do that. So this book here, finally, my final point, this book here, it's very much at the innovation end of design. They're all innovation scholars, but it's got a nice little framework. And in there you can see, again, go back to your lecture notes. There's a Venn diagram. You can see the interface between the think, play, and the do. You can see all of the implications if you look. When you get these graphics, that if you look at them in a particular kind of way, you either see them in 3D or they have something rude in them. You know those ones? Just like that. See what you can see inside that Venn diagram. Think about it as being rude, if you want to think about things as being rude. My childlike mind sometimes. Go to these websites. If I've got a moment, go to these websites and rude things. You have to be careful when you search on that. But things that aren't quite as they say. I like shop signs. The whole generation of shop signs that actually got letters mixed up and they just say rude things, or even just basic things like shit, which we still find funny. Okay, are we happier? Right, Jeff and I, or I, or Jeff and Jeff, will be available for you in those sessions. The deadline is midnight, no, actually 1 minute to midnight on the 27th of March, yeah? You got that? time is yours. If you want to talk to us, if you want to put something past us, then do so. Drop us an email, but we will be available for you on those Thursday sessions. Make the most of it.